Uh, well, hello and welcome back to the Unconnoisseur channel, everybody. I'm Drew.
My name's Matt.
I'm Phil.
You got all three brothers side by side for one more week of recording and probably a couple when I'm back in Fort Wayne.
Yeah.
This week's album we get to talk about is Herbie Hancock, The New Standard. It was
Hmm.
recorded on Verve and it was released on a CD in 1995. This particular album, I think, shook the world because it was taking the current pop charts or popular music of the time, and he put a spin of jazz onto it. Some of those are like the opening song, Don Henley's A New York Minute. There was a Prince song on there. One that always hit me was the Kurt Cobain All Apologies. This
Mhm.
was 1995. So, what
Well,
do you know?
and you got heavy hitters on this album as well. I mean, Herbie playing the piano, Michael Brecker playing the tenor and the soprano sax, John Scofield playing the guitar. Now, I'm a Metheny fan, you know that, but man, John Scofield, he's right up there too. So great guitar player. Dave Holland on the bass and Jack DeJohnette on the drums. So it's like an all-star cast, on this album.
Which is great that you guys know all those names. I am a true unconnoisseur, and I have no idea. Maybe Pat Mahaney, I know.
Pat Metheny,
Yeah, no.
Michael Brecker.
I never heard.
Okay.
Never heard.
Oh
Okay.
man. Well,
Okay.
we're exposing you a little bit of time to jazz music, and that's
Heck
kind of
yeah.
what this is all about.
Hey,
Uh,
you exposed me so much. I found one of these at a yard sale. I'm wearing my hat. I'm sporting my hat tonight. I was like, this is gonna look cool on the unconnoisseur.
I feel bad. I don't have my fedora on over here.
Oh,
Right. Next
So,
oh.
week.
1995. What year? What do you think about that year, Phil?
Oh yeah, it was a good year. I made it through high school and I survived. That was a feat and a half.
So,
Barely.
as usual, we want to change things up because we have all three of us on the screen, and so we're going to start with the slideshow, and we're going to do something a little bit different this week. Matt, what are we planning on doing here?
Well, we're going to roll a clip of the first song on the album. While I just kind of scroll through the first 3 or 4 slides, and then once the clip is over, then we'll continue on. I've got a really cool slide in there this week. We're going to start something new, just kind of a little dictionary jazz lingo kind of slide, and then we'll move on and talk about Herbie a little bit. So why don't we go ahead and play? Let's play a clip. Let's play New York Minute. Maybe
Yeah.
about the first 55 seconds of New York Minute. Give me just a second to get this slideshow up, and here we go with the New York Minute. All right. So here's a cool picture of Herbie. I love this quote that he said: "Forget about trying to compete with someone else. Create your own pathway, create your own new vision." I felt like that was a great quote just based on the album that we're studying this week. We're working on the new standard. And I think he really kind of took his own advice
Yeah.
on that album and chose a new path for some not old songs, but for some really cool work, some cool songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So on the next slide, again, I just wanted to kind of include something cool. I'll tell you about my week in music in a little bit, but I was just thinking that for our listeners, or maybe for a true on connoisseur, the lingo that we kind of talk back and forth, and if it would help benefit them if we could get some of the terms in there that we may be talking about. Now, I don't know how much of this on this slide we're going to talk about, but my word for the day, my word for the week is swing. All right. In swing music, swing can mean many things. Swing is a style of jazz that grew from African American roots and dominated American popular music in what came to be known as the swing era, or approximately 1930 to 1945. Some of the big swing artists, you got Count Basie, Benny Goodman, and Artie Shaw in the swing era.
Duke Ellington. Yeah.
Duke Ellington.
Saw that one
Yep.
too.
Yep. And one of my favorites, Glenn Miller Orchestra. Man, you want to talk about swing.
That's swinging.
That's swinging.
That's swinging.
Yeah, swing has a distinctive rhythmic feel to it, and instead of just the straight eighth notes, tap 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 tap, you got the swing where you can lengthen and shorten the notes, ta 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 ta. So that's how you anticipate swing. Okay, Louis, my man Pop says, if you don't feel it, you'll never know it. And that's right there on the slide. So thanks for letting me do the lingo for the day. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide. And this is the info slide for my man Herbie Hancock.
All right.
Go ahead.
1940.
He
He's still around.
Oh, yeah.
He's still kicking.
Still
He's
kicking.
still doing good things.
Yeah.
Influences by the classically educated Bill Evans, Oscar Peterson.
Yep.
Hey, George Shearing and Errol Garner. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah.
Errol?
Absolutely.
Errol. There you go.
So I was reading today, and he was classically trained first. He didn't even start out in jazz.
Really?
Yeah, he's got that classically trained background. So, yeah, very cool.
Yeah. I can hear that. The difference, even in some that you guys have been now influencing me by, that now I hear more of that classical.
Mhm.
Yeah. Even in this album.
So the discography, man, I put studio albums. He's got a lot. I couldn't even count.
A lot.
I mean, I couldn't even count that high. He does. He's got a lot of studio albums. He's scored films, 11 films. He's done the score for. He's done 6 concert films, which is, a full length feature concert of him and his band and special guests.
Wow.
And he's written 2 books. So he's a hard worker for sure.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Read the genre. Can you read
Bath
that?
jazz,
Yep.
post bob, modal jazz,
Yep.
fusion, funk, and electro and pop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kind of fits into all those.
that does.
So I do have something to add to that. Post bop.
All right.
Post bop.
Bebop and hard bop, the 40s and 50s come out, and then all of a sudden we've got this era after the bop. We would refer to it as the post bop. I think Joe Cocker would have called it modern jazz, but I think it's a step further for me. When I think of somebody like Kamasi Washington or my man Shabaka Hutchins,
Yeah.
post bop. Now we're
Post-bop.
still doing jazz, but it's taken a little bit different form. So I think the genre for Herbie on that slide was just spot on.
He
'Cause
fits into that.
I was a big fan today again and again and again of the same album, Headhunters. I couldn't get it out of my ears today. But we're talking about the new standard.
Yeah, the new standard. So we're still on my slide here.
Let's
so I just want to let's finish the slide real quick, and then we'll move on. So I listed his awards. He is a 14-time Grammy winner.
Wow.
14 times.
Wow.
And these are just a few that I put up here. So MTV Best Concept Video for Rocket in 1983. He did win 1 Academy Award for the score for Around Midnight. And that's just to name a few. I mean, obviously, hopefully you guys do your own digging on Herbie Hancock and just find out what a amazing artist he really is. And before we finish this slide, let's do 6 degrees because it's super easy.
1.
Boom. 1.
One and done.
1 and done.
You
Now,
shake
what-
hands with.
Because
Well,
there's a historical marker in that. We can't overlook that.
Right.
Herb,
It's called the Great Quintet, right?
second great. Yep.
Second Great Quintet.
And I still think we've talked about it in the past. I still think that was the greatest. It wasn't the second great. It was the best great. It
Good.
just happened to be in numerical order or chronological order. The second one that Miles had,
Yeah.
and that was early on, man. That was killer times.
Killer times.
Mm.
All right, let's finish off the slideshow with Today in Jazz History. So on July the 3rd, In 1955, Art Tatum records Too Marvelous for Words. So July the 3rd, Art Tatum. Also, Johnny Coles. He was a trumpet player. He was born in 1926 in Trenton, New Jersey. Why is that important to me? I was born in Bayonne, not too far away. Yay!
A little bit past 26.
yeah, a lot past 1926. So Johnny Coles, trumpet, born in 1926. One final quote on the bottom of that slide: music happens to be an art form that transcends language.
Ooh.
You talked about last week. He talked about the language of the double quintet, the Joe Harriet double quintet.
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing with you because I loved what you brought to the table last week. But Herbie says music transcends language, and I believe it, man.
Yeah. It's a good way.
Yeah. You throw on some music to somebody who doesn't speak English, they're going to get it just like you do.
Everybody can dance.
Everybody can
bop.
Absolutely.
Everybody can groove, for sure.
Yep.
Everybody can feel it because there's emotion, in language. Emotion, it drives people. It can make people mad, make people sad, make people, right? That's in there.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure. I like that.
So that's the end of the slideshow. Thanks for letting me do that.
Thanks for sharing that week after week. I love all the information that comes to the table. Gives us a lot more to talk about. I also get to understand how much homework you've put into it, and then I know what I can talk about later because I gorged on Herbie this week.
Oh yeah, yeah.
and I did last year too. So
yeah, I did too. So how was your week in music? What went on?
My week was a whole lot of video editing and photos, getting everything released and out. I've got all that done from the camp. This week has been pretty much a chill week. We got to do the jazz ensemble on Sunday night, and that was the highlight of my week after the busyness of being here at the grind. It's been a fairly chill week. A lot of Herbie, a lot of our other album of the week. But I ended up, it was weird to me that I would just bounce around from music to music to music. I had some Esteban Svensson in my ear, and I had Headhunters, the album from Herbie, in my ear, and I've had a lot of Clifford Brown this week. I ended up on Tenors of Our Time from Roy Hargrove. In fact, that two different combos this year at the camp did Roy Hargrove tunes. One that was Hargrove, written by Chick Corea in honor of, and then the other was Saint. Drawing a blank now. Saint Denis. It was one of the more advanced combos that did that. Which was an interesting fact going back to Roy Hargrove, is that I came across this. He beat out Wynton Marsalis in 1995 for Reader's Poll Best Trumpeter. I think that was Downbeat Magazine.
In 95. So the same year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Critics
same year. Wow.
So that was just a random fact listening to Roy, and that came across, and I'm like, well, that's funny. Here I am listening to Roy, and I just read that. Oh, it's the same year the album that we're talking about.
Right.
So what about your weekend music? Either
go ahead.
No, I just tell you guys, I made the mistake of going and watching the one you launched. And I don't want to take the rest of the time to talk about what Courtney does, but Courtney Pine, I just kept going and going and going and going. I can compare just a bit. When I think of this week with Herbie, right? You think smooth, man. Like people have suits on. You're chilled out. People are nice. They're fancy. They're laid out, right? You got kind of a I don't know. Thinking of 1995 again when the album came out. Like I'm sitting in a carpeted room. You've got tables sitting around. You're kind of chilling. Everybody's smoking a cigar. You're whatever. Yeah, I mean that's the kind of feel you have. And then I listened to what you guys launched about Courtney Pine, and I'm like, oh, now I'm feeling. Now I'm like, all right, move the carpet, get some jive, get some people moving, feeling it. Like, oh, there's just so much emotion, which it's I'm not comparing,
right?
Because it's not apples to oranges here, right? I mean, you're jazz and jazz, but this is a whole different level. So that was my contribution to what happened this week for Courtney Pine. So now it'll come up now forever now on my Spotify. Like, oh, you want one of his? Oh, you want one of his? Maybe you might rock me some other way, but yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well, is it my turn?
Yeah, roll it.
I had the honor and the privilege this Saturday, of going to the 36th annual Elkhart Jazz Fest in Elkhart, Indiana.
Yeah.
Put that up there real quick. 36th annual, and they have different themes for their show every year. This theme for this year was worthy of note. I got to see some phenomenal trumpet players. Now they're, again, like, not comparing styles, but they're two very different styles of jazz.
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell you, Bria Schoenberg. Bria, it was
you
so
got that
nice.
signed.
Oh, heck yeah, I
What?
got it signed.
Another signature.
She said, "Hi, Matt." Bria Schoenberg. Yep. And look, she drew a little trumpet. You
Is
see
that
it?
what that is?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to learn that for my signature.
Look at that.
Dude, you guys should use that. That
Ooh,
yeah.
that would be awesome.
Oh,
I just want I want a
Hashtag-
shirt made with that.
hashtag Bria.
Hashtag Bria.
Hashtag Bria.
She is
That's
the nicest
cool.
person. Now, I got a chance to let me tell you about the other artists, and then I'll tell you about Bria. We also got to see Ilya Serov, and he's a smooth jazz trumpet player. Bria, she comes from Louis Armstrong and Bix Beiderbecke. If you could hear what Louis Armstrong sounded like today, it would be Bria playing the trumpet.
Wow.
I mean, amazing.
Oh, really?
I mean, when I closed my eyes during the performance, all I could think of was, man, that's what Pops would sound like today.
Wow.
Man, that's
Whoa.
I know it's a big compliment. I know it is, but she's worth it. She
Wow.
really is.
That good.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was a little starstruck after her performance, and you're standing at the autograph table, and oh my gosh, what do I say? What do I say? I want to meet her. I want to shake her hand. I want to get a selfie, and this, that, and the other. And so I was a little starstruck. I mean, I didn't have time to process all the questions that I wanted to, and there was a short line behind me, so I didn't want to take up all of the time. But yep, I got her autograph, took a couple of pictures, introduced her to Kendra, and we just had a good little chit chat right there at the autograph table. Later in the afternoon, Ilya Serov, he's a smooth jazz trumpet player, and it's a different style of music. It is where Bria has kind of almost a pinpoint dart style of trumpet that hits you right here in the center of your forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Ilya, he's got more of a round, this is a basketball coming right at your face kind of sound.
Ilya.
Ilya Serov, he's a Russian-born trumpet player, speaks good. I mean, he speaks English. He's been a United States citizen now for 10 years, but man, he plays this thing called the jazzophone. And I didn't send you a picture of it yet, but I will, Drew.
Jazzophone.
It's a trumpet.
It'll be up.
He's playing the valves. Yeah. We'll put a picture on the screen here. Thank you. I'm just getting excited.
On the jazzophone.
And he holds it like a saxophone because the bell comes way down and then comes up like that, and it's got a big round bell on it like a saxophone bell. It's a trumpet.
What?
The tubing is just different.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to it on CD, it would probably be hard to tell between the flugelhorn and the jazzophone, but
it has a cool.
cool, smooth sound.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love that performance too. They're of course both different styles of jazz, but I don't know, exciting the same. You know what I mean? So Bria came in to see Ilya's performance. She was kind of sitting off to the side by herself. She was, probably texting her husband or her family or whatever during the performance. Nothing disrespectful because she was listening and she was, bobbing her head. But after the performance was done, she stayed over there by herself for a few minutes, and I decided to hijack her. I went over, I bum rushed her really, and I did. I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry. If you got to go, you got to go." But I was so starstruck when I got your autograph. There was just a few questions I wanted to ask that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't think of, and she was so just patient and polite, and she's just amazing. Just, she was fun to talk to. I asked her kind of who her influences were, who she's listening to now, um, and I asked her if she ever gets to work with Wynton, because she does work for the Lincoln Center for Jazz.
Yeah.
She's a field representative, and he's stationed mostly there. So she said that she does get to work with him every once in a while, or pass him in the hall and ask him a question. But so I got a 1 degree to Wynton. I got a 2 degree.
That's
I
good.
met Bria, who works with Wynton.
That's awesome.
So it was a great day of music. I met some cool friends that day.
Mm.
I've been texting with this guy named Walker, who we met. I of course was wearing my Pat Metheny T-shirt and my hat, and I think I kind of stood out because people remembered me.
Yeah.
They remembered.
They come up to you. Yeah,
It wasn't me. It was Kendra. They remembered because she's beautiful and
true that. True that.
But I met Walker. We met Walker right before the Bria show, and we could have stood there and talked for 20, 30 minutes about Pat Metheny. He's a big Pat Metheny fan too. And unfortunately, we had to get to the show. But after the show, we came back out, and man, he was still standing out there. And we talked for another 20, 30 minutes. And he knows somebody that you like because he grew up with him. And
Yeah,
well,
boy.
Roy Hargrove. Roy Hargrove. Yeah, you just talked about him just a minute ago. So Walker, if you're watching, man, it was great to meet you and talk to you. Thanks so much for texting me, and I'll continue to text you too. So it was a good day overall. So
Very
that was
cool.
that was my
That's
I'm gonna
big
have
week.
a link in the description below to Elia's and Debria's websites, because I know that both got them.
Yep.
It was super cool to have you call and tell me the story about meeting her. And I am reminded, and I want to say this to everybody: jazz is not standoffish. If you've met a musician, a jazz musician, chances are they want you to come and ask questions. They want to talk about their passion. They're creating this music for you to enjoy. And I think it was a question that was asked by Wynton once: who's the music for, you or the audience? And he says, well, without the audience, there is no reason to create the music. So it's for them. But without
Mhm.
my passion to create music, there's no music.
There's
And
no
so
audience. Yeah,
no
nobody
audience.
comes.
And
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
think about what Andre Hayward said at one of the master classes last year: listen, come and talk to me, but just come talk to a musician. And so I'm glad you ended up going over there after Ilya's show and talking with her. It
Yeah.
it is a sign of respect to the artist to just have some questions, and even just to say, wow, I'm a fanboy. Can I get
Yeah.
your autograph? I mean,
Right.
I don't know if I showed you this one yet, but a buddy of mine, Jay Tillman, this week is out playing with the Dallas
Nice.
Symphony Orchestra. And I did this
Nice.
black and white for him last year, and he showed up to
That's
the
cool.
camp this year, and I was like, "Hey, dude, can I get your autograph?" He was like, "Drew, I'm nobody." I said, "No, but it'd be funny to have it." So everybody that was in this book, I printed 8 photos. I went up to him and said, "Hey, would you autograph this?" And one of the kids was like, "Really?" I'm like, "Dude, one day you're gonna be famous, and I'm gonna have this."
I knew him win.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I knew
Yeah,
you
yeah.
win.
I knew
Yeah.
he'd win. So
Yeah,
it
that's
is that
cool.
humor inside that it's not a big deal to approach a musician and ask about jazz, especially if you have some curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think about that with Herbie too. You look at what, 14 Grammys, one of which was The River, the
Yeah.
Joni letters. And so I'm like, wow, if I saw him, what would I say? And
You know, this is my one advice. Whenever you walk up to somebody, remember they're a person, right? Just remember they're a person. They've got likes, they got dislikes, they've got this, but they also have their good days and bad days, right? So something might have just happened and it's horrible. But you always heard the phrase, probably, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
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 Don't meet your heroes, because they're not your heroes anymore. But who knows what their day's like. I do have to tell you, there are a couple guys that I won't name on here, but my buddy who I posted for last week, yeah, when I talked about Strogan,
Yeah.
yeah, he said there are a couple of guys that he really enjoyed working with, and there were a couple guys you did not want to meet. You didn't want to hang out with them. all you want to do is do the music and get the hell out of there because they were not fun.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
that
he
son.
said it.
The good son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the
Mom, he used a bad word.
Oh wait, I just said that on my.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
no!
Oh, yeah.
Hey, bleep, bleep.
Well, Matt and I have talked about this before. There were some big band leaders that people just
Yeah.
you didn't get to know
Yeah.
them. They
Yeah.
weren't necessarily standoffish. I think the story of Duke Ellington, nobody really knew his personal world, and that's what he did. But then there were
Yeah.
other conversations about musicians who you just don't want to spend time with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
I won't-
is.
Yeah. I won't tell you them, but I'll tell you this because we have our music festival gig and I got to meet David Crowder, right? And as I got to talk with him, he said, "Man, I'm not getting on a plane and coming to Romania. I'm not doing that." And we went back and we're talking to the guy who does the festival in England. And he said, "I toured with Crowder. He would play, he would pour his heart out, he'd connect with the people, and then he'd hide. He's an introvert." So you think some people, they can go out there and perform, but it's everything they've got, and they're an introvert. They don't want to interact. They don't want to connect. They don't want to be a people person. So, yeah, just because they love music or can go out there and perform or teach or preach or say or whatever they're doing doesn't mean that they care to interact with people. So there's an interesting way to look at musicians, right? They're people.
Yeah.
So some of them are extroverts, some are introverts, some of them are leave me alone.
Yeah.
But you pushed through and you said, "Hey, I want to talk to you."
Well, I hope.
How'd
Bria
you say
wasn't
it?
having-
Bum rush you?
Yeah, I bum rush her, but I hope it wasn't that she was just having a
Well,
good day. I hope
yeah.
that Bria is this way all the
Yeah.
time. And you know what? Based on what I had gleaned from the 5 minutes that we talked, I think she is. I think she's that way all the time.
Yeah.
So leads me in because my week I was so excited about Jazz Fest, but again, listening to Herbie, just let's get back into Herbie.
Yeah.
Listening to Herbie for me, we get the opportunity to hear the recordings. What we don't see is all the hours and hours and hours of practice and preparation, and even the work behind the scenes to get the musicians together and show them the charts and the rehearsals. We get the gold at the end of the rainbow of all the work.
Yeah.
And this album for me, this is golden. This is the one for me that kind of changed everything. And when you know what, I'm going to ask him a question real quick, because when I called him today to make sure he was coming over for the recording, he's like, "I think you said this blew me away." So tell me, what blew you away about?
Yeah, well, again, I have not done a whole lot of jazz. So even as I was kind of serious last week, what's jazz? Like, what I couldn't wrap my head around it due to that Indo, right? Jazz. And to think, really, then what is jazz? Where would you feel jazz again? And this is like, oh yeah, this is jazz. This feels jazz. This is jazz. That for me is where it goes to I know it now. I remember it now. It was a distant memory, if you will, but boom, it's right back. And so it brought me into that jazz feel. Smooth. Yeah. By song 3, I'm going, I'll keep listening to this for sure.
Yeah.
New York Minute got a little crazy for me. And I was listening to it with Scotty actually. And I said, this song lives up to its name, because I feel crazy right now. And we live in Bucharest. So we live in a big city.
Right.
And there is that crazy, right? And so it brings it. New York Minute. But when you get to the Norwegian Wood, I think it is the third song.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Drew, you want to drop a clip Norwegian Wood in right now?
Yeah, that'd be good.
I do. Here we go.
Okay.
I'll
All
do
right.
that. 3, 2. Perfect.
That's the feel.
Yeah.
To me, that's what just blew me away, right? It blew me away. That's the feel.
And he came in on a week, last week, Indo Jazz was a completely different. I mean, that was hard.
To
It was
say
a
the
hard-
least.
Yeah, it was a hard episode. And so when a non-connoisseur or when someone said, here's the word jazz, Indo jazz may be the first thing they think of. Oh, this is going to be crazy. This is going to be wild. They don't think about,
Well,
Mellow,
and Matt,
smooth.
it's funny because he comes in on a day when it's Indo jazz. It's the farthest thing from what we've thought about as jazz. Now he's here on a Herbie Hancock, and we're talking about the new standards, which is pop tunes, spun jazz. So we asked him last week, would you recommend this to a first-time jazz listener? In the Indo Suite answer, you had said, I had to understand Indian music to understand it. So I might ask you again later, would you recommend this album to a first-time jazz listener, especially if you're wrestling with what is jazz?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that was what
For
your
sure.
text message was, by the way.
Yep.
a little hint, a little reminder. So, for those of you that don't have the magazine and can't read through the article, I just want to read one sentence of the paragraph. And if you haven't gotten your copy of Jazzwise magazine yet, man, please visit the website. We're not sponsored by Jazzwise, but this has truly been helpful on our journey. Reading through these paragraphs, even if that was the only information that you read about Herbie Hancock this week, it would be worth it.
Wait, put that up there again, Drew. Does it look like your face? No, you gotta turn and make that your face really quick. Oh, come
I
on.
don't know that I could do that.
We're there. Just look into it. Look into it. Oh, that was good.
You're
We'll
nice.
just pause it where it was. It was good.
So the sentence that I highlighted in the magazine for me this week: historically, jazz has always borrowed from popular culture, most notably Louis Armstrong's use of Broadway standards in the early 1930s that helped make the practice the norm. But with the rise of Wynton Marsalis and the Young Lions in the 1980s, pop culture was deemed off limits. And I think Herbie
Ooh.
puts his thumb up and says, forget it. I'm going back to what I like, and this is what I'm going to do. We're going to use these standards and create new standards off of them.
And
Interesting.
I think we talked about that for Winton Week as well. As straight jazz, or was he a purist? Is he a purist? And there's something to be said about that. And Herbie then says, you know what? I came through the straight jazz. I know what this is about, and I'm still going to do what I wanted to do. And that was in the 70s through the electric fusion jazz.
Right.
And here we are in 95, and he says it again. You can spin out of everything. Let's just do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
So, again, we're not plugging Jazzwise. We are, but because that's what we're using for our journey. If they would sponsor us, I'd say their name 50 times in an episode. But if you haven't gotten your copy, man, go out and order your copy of Jazzwise, because, again, it is really helpful, even if the only information is that particular paragraph that you read about the artist.
Yeah.
3-2 live. So I got some exciting news, and let me tell you this before we head back to Herbie. But I heard back from our contact in Richmond.
Oh.
And we've got a very special recording place that was going to happen in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
Yep.
We will be recording that night, or that afternoon, actually, Monday, July 22nd. We'll be recording in a special location. And we're actually going to do another episode in another different location, all three of us together live together. So we've got a couple of really cool, exciting things coming up on the channel that I am just super, super excited about. Much like my excitement for Herbie this week. On our personal journey, man, that phenomenal music. And it was hard to pick, much like you. Playing Courtney Pine
or Herbie.
And Herbie,
Oh, man, yeah.
And on our personal journey this week, where we're at, it was tough to decide what to listen to.
We're at 34, number 34 in the countdown. Don't have to look, but Phil, I want you to imagine this. You've listened 36. You've listened to a handful, few albums. We've gone down 67 albums, 63 albums already. So every day when we think about what are we going to listen to, it can get overwhelming because there's a list of great albums from the top 100, but then the albums that we found beyond that. I was talking to a guy last night about Brad Maldonado. And he
Mhm.
said, you need to listen to this bootleg copy when he's doing this solo. And this is where he plays aggressively. And I thought, you want to know, talk about aggressively. And I said, what about Jacob's Ladder?
Jacob's Ladder.
And we went on for another 10 minutes talking about Jacob's Ladder. And he
Uh-huh.
was like, how do you come across where? And I'm like, this is all part of our conversation at the Unconnoisseur. And he's like, yeah, I've listened to a few of them. And I said, it's
No
just
way.
digging into what this is about. We also talked about the Little Rascals and what it was called, Our Gang. There's
Our
this
Gang.
random information that comes, and then you're struggling. Do I listen to Jacob's Ladder,
Right.
or do I listen to Esbjörn Svensson Trio? Or
Oh
do I go
man,
to Herbie
yeah,
Hancock, or do I go to Wynton Marsalis? So these
yeah,
names come out because we've done this, and it's become, uh, as you can see on the bottom of our conversation here, whatever you do, do it to jazz. And if we're listening to jazz music, and now I'm playing jazz music and hanging out with
Jazz musicians.
yeah, I'm thinking about all the photos and videos, the people I got to hang out with. It is becoming life. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah.
Herbie
Well,
Hancock,
I felt like that. I felt like that on Saturday at the Jazz Fest. I felt like I'm surrounded by my people.
Nice. I'm with my
I'm
people.
with my people.
yes,
And
Yeah.
I felt like I was friendlier just because they were there for the same reason I was.
Mhm.
yeah,
And I walked around with a smile on my face all day long, just so people would say
Yeah.
hi or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
oh
cool.
yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
So
So-
Herbie Hancock, tell me
Herbie.
a little bit about your thoughts on this album, Phil. I'm as curious about that as anything.
Yeah, well, I guess like I already said, I went through the first couple songs, and when I hit number 3, that's that song that I just stopped and went, okay, I'm gonna sit here for a bit, love this one, enjoy this one, and I pushed through a couple more, just find out what they were. A lot of them starting off really smooth jazz, if you will, and then like New York Minute, there's a point in time where I'm like, I couldn't listen to this if I was trying to just enjoy, right? Because I'm feeling like I'm going, and so I actually I started vacuuming at home,
Mhm.
and I threw it in my head, and I'm like, I fit now. This is it. I can listen to this while I'm moving, but I can't just listen. Right? I can't just sit back and listen to this style of jazz just because of the way that it throws your head around.
Well,
And-
Drew and I have talked about in the past episodes how it makes your brain fire. Like you feel almost creative while you're listening to jazz, or
yeah,
you can process things differently when you're listening to jazz.
yeah.
And it just kind of makes your brain fire a little different. And like you said, man, you're vacuuming, but you're still concentrating on the music, even though you don't have to really concentrate on vacuuming.
Yeah.
You get to
Yeah.
focus on,
Yeah.
wow, what's Herbie doing in the background? What's
And I think it's interesting. You've said it a few times, and I'm going to go back. Norwegian Wood was the song by John
Yeah.
Lennon and Paul McCartney.
delete that? But play Mercy Street anyways.
Oh yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So I'll
Yeah.
drop in Mercy Street right
Do
here.
Mercy Street
Yeah,
because
Mercy
That's a
Street.
Peter Gabriel tune.
Peter Gabriel tune.
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to drop that in 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
I
it.
love the recognizability of the artists that I've listened to before. Peter Gabriel, I've listened to Peter Gabriel before, and that album, So is I believe is the album that Mercy Street's on. I love that album, and
Mm.
it's one of those ones where I have almost memorized. I can tell you what song's coming next. So when you hear Mercy
Yeah.
Street in a different setting
Style.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
style,
Yeah.
yeah, a style, it impresses me altogether. Now, you know that I have my jazz playlist, and this was so funny. I'll never forget it ever. I'll never ever forget it. But weeks afterwards, I'm listening to my jazz playlist on shuffle, and I was having trouble picking out some of the songs. And I asked Drew, I'm like, man, I'm really struggling with with these particular songs. And he says, when in doubt, it's Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
And so
No.
anytime I'm playing my shuffle game and I want
Yeah.
to guess the artist, I'm like, oh, it's got to be Herbie.
It's
Yeah,
Herbie.
and it's Herbie.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
He,
When in
That's
doubt,
funny.
he has such a beautiful way of
Wow.
filling in. And I, again, doing my homework for this, you realize that he and Wayne Shorter shared a love for less notes, playing with the meaning. And
Mm.
Miles did the same thing. And when
Love
they
for
talk
less
about flying with Miles, play the one note that carries you away. And Herbie has a way with all of the chords and the sounds that he fills in between solos. He is so proficient at what he does that you almost don't know that he's there. And
Yeah.
when you listen to more and more of his albums, you start thinking, wow, he is so subtle and ornate. And then, of course, an album like this, when it's all about piano and he gets a little more assertive, then you're listening, going, "Oh yeah, you can hear that." You can hear it on Headhunters with the electrical stuff. You can hear it on a lot of that fusion throughout, but in the earlier jazz standards or the straight jazz, and it's a different story. So
Yeah.
So this album is number 77 on the 2022 list. In 2006, this album was number 74. So it dropped a couple in the list, but I'm glad that it was 77 and not number 7, because if I'd have had to
Oh.
wait
Mm.
a year to hear this
Yeah.
album, I might
Mm.
have been a little ticked off. Now, it did not make the list in 1999 at all.
Ooh, really?
It didn't make the list at all in 1999. So I'm
Well,
thankful that it's on the list.
yeah, I'm thinking that it was just a 4-year-old album. How do you say that is something that would have shaken the world at 4
World.
years old?
True.
So I can give
Yeah.
him props for that.
True.
I mean, it could have been like Drew Rice falling off the porch, breaking his thumb. That's a shaking of the world right there.
Hey man, I was Superman in my Superman underoos, baby. I had a cape on and
No.
everything.
Wait a minute, because I remember us talking him into tying a sheet to his belt and jumping off
He
the
did.
roof.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It almost didn't
And you know
work.
what? Worse? You know what's worse? I tried it again.
At first you don't succeed. Jump off the rooftop again.
That's why
It's
my
Harry-
knees are killing me
Until
today.
Marilyn Boney calls and says, "Those kids
Yeah.
are on the rooftop again."
Off the roof.
So,
Oh man.
all right, let me ask you another question, Drew. Was this your out of every Herbie album that you listened to? Was the New Standard was it a favorite, or did you find yourself going to a different one?
Holy cow. I found myself going to a different one, and I think you
Did
know
you?
which one I'm going to say. I found
Go ahead.
myself gravitating to Maiden Voyage.
Yeah.
And that album to me, and I think that this was long before, but we were listening to Herbie, and then several months later, I guess 4 or 5 months later, we're sitting on the jazz ensemble night on Sundays, and hey, let's play Maiden Voyage. And so all of a sudden we're learning from hearing the song how to play the song. And it really
Oh.
hit when you're trying to just play along to somebody else's recording of it. Phil used to do this with the guitar. He'd put his headphones
Yeah.
on and just play
Yeah.
and play until somebody finally told him to shut the thing down and go to bed like at 2 a.m. But that's how we learn music.
Yeah.
And so Maiden Voyage to me became a special thing. What about you, Matt?
Well, I want to let him talk because I recommended him listen to this other album too.
You guys, really, like, I'm not a jazz connoisseur at all, but I'm
Neither are we.
I'm
Neither-
over listening to Possibilities
Yeah.
because this is the
Word.
one that was recommended. And there's a couple of them that I was like, I'm really looking forward to getting to that artist, right? On where they're going to be a part of this. John Mayer, of course, starts it off perfectly. You got him. I know him. What a song. I seriously though, I have to tell you, I was so looking forward to Sting because I love I love his music. I love the style. I love everything. Just being honest,
Okay. But you might get punched.
it sounded messy. It sounded in the middle of this song like people are slipping on snot. Like it just started going crazy-ish. And I thought maybe there was a mood in the room. Maybe there was a feel. Maybe there was something else going on, but it just felt jumbled. It didn't feel like Sting gets you to that almost feeling where you go, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'm
The
I'm
tantric
here.
place.
I'm settled. And this was like, yeah, and then we're funky too. Like, how can we bring the funky out? I don't know. That
Okay.
was the way
Hey,
when
that's
I go to
fair.
Herbie
That's fair.
and I took your recommendation and I listened and I couldn't believe that I really love the not Celine Dion. What was the one?
Christina Aguilera.
Aguilera was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um
We're going to start where we left off here due to technical difficulties. Thank you all for your patience on this, but we are back. I had just talked about Maiden Voyage as my album that I listen to a lot. Phil had brought up
Okay.
he brought up his
Possibility.
album Possibilities.
Possibilities.
Absolutely.
Possibilities. Yeah.
And so
yeah.
let's kick it off from there. Matt, what was the album from Herbie that you would go back? or
Well,
have
for
gone
me,
back to?
for me this week, Empyrean Isle, and because of the artist also on the album, I mean, it's a Herbie Hancock album, but Freddie Hubbard plays the trumpet, and anytime I get to hear Freddie, I'm excited.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
jacked up, jazzed up. Ron Carter on the bass and Anthony Williams on the drums. For me, Empyrean Isle is a standout for me, just simply because of Freddie Hubbard. And again, I'm a huge fan. Wynton is kind of my gold standard, but Freddie Hubbard is right up there. Gold. He's right up there. He really is. I mean it.
You know, if you break that down into all around trumpet players or all around jazz trumpet players, you could have two gold stars up
favorites?
there.
I could. You're right. and you know what? I was thinking about this the other day. Like, well, who's better? Is Wynton better or is Freddie better? Who cares?
Yeah.
I like them. I like them both. So I'm not. It's the argument like who's better, Michael Jordan or
LeBron James.
LeBron James.
LeBron James.
Yeah, no.
And yes, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
They both had a
So-
season and a time for what they did, what they're doing, and they were both great at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, Dad would say Larry Bird's the best, but
Well,
Yeah.
I wouldn't disagree with that either.
I wouldn't either.
On that one, I would not listen to an Annie Lennox. Like it's decent, right?
Mhm.
But on the Herbie Hancock, on the one you recommended there, I was like, yeah, I like her.
Yeah.
There's possibilities.
Possibly. Yeah.
You're a goober.
Right.
Awesome. That was
Okay,
awesome.
so let me ask you: did the album shake your world?
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Phil?
Yeah. Like I said, once I got rolling into it, I'm like, this is something I will just enjoy the way I'm gonna sit and enjoy it for sure. Like you guys shoved me off the cliff, right? As the world was shaking. threw me out there to some
Jazz
Courtney
suite.
Pine.
Oh,
No,
Yeah,
Courtney
yeah.
Pine, right? Like, shoot. So I'm coming back here for sure. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
threw yourself off the cliff with Courtney Pine. 'Cause you watched the episode
Yeah.
where we
That's
just.
true.
I mean,
Yeah.
That's true.
yeah, we loved
Yeah.
all over Courtney, and Courtney, we do love you absolutely.
Yeah.
And what
Oh,
about
yeah.
you, Matt? Did it shake you up?
Yeah. How about it?
It did. Yeah, this album definitely shook my world. And again, not we had heard the name. I don't think we even talked about this part, but we had heard the name Herbie Hancock, and both of us were like, when we did this album together a year ago, we're like, okay, heard the name, don't know much of his music or what.
Oh, really?
And now even that week that we listened to it, we shoved so much in our ears, and that's why our score is going to reflect just
Oh,
how I think
absolutely.
the overall amount of music that we had in our ears that week.
It's funny because I was just counting the albums a little bit ago. 15 other Herbie Hancock albums that I listened to that week. And that was where I came out with the Michael Brecker, Roy Hargrove directions and music because I just binged Herbie Hancock. And
Yeah.
we hadn't come across the name yet. We knew of it. I mean, right? We've listened to enough jazz through mistakes of listening. You know the name Herbie, like Quincy Jones.
Quincy
Yeah.
Jones.
We know of the name, but I've yet to really spend a lot of time looking into him.
Right.
So, yeah. What,
Right. So yeah, I'm looking at my list too of what I listen to. The Tribute to Miles album.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I,
you know what? I didn't mention this earlier. VSOP.
the SOP.
And
Yep.
oddly enough, named after cognac in Wayne's honor because he drank a
Really?
lot of
Yeah.
cognac as a young man.
Yeah.
So,
Well, as an old man too.
as an old man too, absolutely. So you think about Herbie from that manner and think, man, how much music did he do in the '60s with Miles, and doing
Yeah.
the tribute with Miles, and that was wasn't that Wallace Rooney?
Wallace
who was
Rooney.
playing.
That's right.
Yeah,
Because he's in my notes too. And this is
Yeah.
the first week we'd ever heard of Wallace Rooney. And then we started rabbit holing down
Oh,
Wallace Rooney.
Yeah.
And
he took lessons from Dizzy. He took lessons from Clark Terry, and he was one of the only students that I know of Miles Davis.
Yeah.
So to have
So is it-
Wallace playing on
Really?
that tribute was huge.
so is it okay to have 3 trumpet players with gold stars? I forgot about Wallace Rooney.
Well, I don't know, because then I have to start thinking, how many gold stars can I give? Because I just named off Clark Terry.
Clark
I-
Terry.
and although I might
Lee
not play,
Morgan.
oh come on, Sidewinder.
It's Sidewinder.
It just all of those names. Yeah, how can you rate the best? And
Yeah.
we're not even talking about trumpet players this week. We're
Right,
talking about
right.
a pianist,
Piano player.
keyboard. And I thought about this because I've listened to Rocket. We grew up hearing that song, not knowing it was really all along Herbie Hancock. We
Mhm.
watched the video,
Mhm.
and it was a tip of the hat. I didn't mention this earlier in the facts. Herbie had a double major at college. He was an electrical engineer. Grinnell College, electrical engineering. That was his other major in college.
What?
So for him to do the
If it
electronic,
doesn't work out in jazz, I'm gonna
Well,
go wire some
I'm
houses.
gonna go
Right?
build a spaceship.
and he built a spaceship in that video rocket.
Yeah.
But that part of it makes sense with the synthesizer and the electronics. So as I dug into Herbie, yes, it began to really shake my world. Not only this album, but just who he is in general.
Hmm.
So a lot of fun stories about him.
All right, you ready to rate? Should we just do it simultaneously?
I think we should. Phil, do you
Yep.
have a rating in the top of your
This-
head?
This will be easy. Ready?
Three,
Three,
two,
Two,
one.
one.
10.
Tens, baby.
Tens all around.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I hate that because now I got a 10. Now I got something I have to compare it to in these weeks to come. Like, is everything going to be a 10? No, that one
No.
was a 10.
Okay, well that poses an interesting question then, because if I were to ask you to rate Courtney Pine, what would you rate Courtney Pine?
But like how you can't keep rating higher, but that's where my head is this week. So
When you watched the
Yeah, it's a
episode,
10.
you watched the episode so that you
Yeah.
know that we were way up there, but we didn't
Yeah.
go 10
I
for
I
Courtney.
no, I would go 10 for Courtney. That's
Okay.
my
Yeah.
personal, but that's a preference, and it's
Yeah.
kind of schluffs around on
And-
emotion, like
Okay.
high emotion.
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't know how famous he is, yeah, or how much he has as far as your other.
And
part
Phil, you talked
Great.
about this earlier, last episode. You guys are no longer unconnoisseurs because you've got all these names to throw around. After
Yeah.
60 weeks or more of doing this, it's the names like Wallace Rooney that you come across because he's played with. And these little connections, these jazz musicians from the 60s and 70s or the 80s and 90s, even Bria.
Yeah.
How many people has she come in contact with just being associated with the Lincoln Jazz?
Right.
And these connections begin to build and form, and it's a small community. It's a tight network of people, and so yeah, you start to learn these names because it becomes repetition. Until
It-
you
it
see
did-
somebody
yeah.
like this week's album, and then you go,
Yeah.
"Where'd they come from?"
Right. It did seem like a big world. When we first started this journey, I was a little
Oh.
overwhelmed. Like, I'm never going to learn these guys. I'm never going to
Yeah.
I'm never
Yeah.
going to remember all their names. And now that that, and we're only what 23 weeks into it.
23 weeks in.
So 23 weeks, and already we're starting to put two and two together, and we're just hitting our
Yeah.
stride. And I don't feel
Well-
bad about rating Herbie Hancock 10. And if there's artists that come up that I like as much, I'm going to rate him a 10. But
Yeah.
we don't.
Well, and your rating's not just what you like, right? There's other pieces in there, craftsmanship you've got in there, but also, the
Awareness,
awareness.
creativity.
Awareness comes
We're-
in there. So,
Phil, it's interesting because we use those as guidelines for it, but the real question is, did you enjoy it? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
say it was a 10 or a 5 or a 4 or a 0? So, yeah, there's some basic criteria for us, craftsmanship and awareness, but feeling is one of those. Is
Oh,
it,
yeah.
does it
How
carry
does
you
it make
away?
feel? How does
Yeah.
it make you
Yeah.
feel?
Yeah.
The emotion part of it. So
yeah.
Courtney made you feel good.
Oh,
He
yeah.
put you in that groove.
Yeah.
And although Herbie made you feel good, it was a different kind of
Yeah.
it was a different kind
Yeah.
of good.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Get a different visual.
yeah.
Yeah.
so
It is.
Yeah. I'm not going to change mine to a 9.5 or anything, but
No. But Matt and I have experienced this, and we've talked to listeners. We've made some bad decisions along the way when we gave lower scores than what we knew at the time, Bix, and it haunts us still today. It really
Yeah.
does. And there are
Yeah.
numbers like Courtney Pine for me. The rating that I gave on that episode reflected my personal life at that time. Did I
Yeah.
really enjoy the music? Did it move me? Did it carry me somewhere? And at the time, it was just kind of another album. And then looking back later, you go, "Oh man, did I do it wrong,
Mm.
or was it?" And that's partly why, Phil. That's why we began this conversation. Is that our life does impact the way we enjoy music. And
Sure.
the
Oh,
things
yeah.
that are going on in our world, for example, last year, we were talking about Red Young, who plays a Hammond B3 organ. And the week that we're talking about him, I'm sorry, not Red Young, Larry Young, we're
Larry
listening
Young.
to Larry Young's Unity.
Okay.
That week was Texas Jazz and Blues Camp. And Red Young, who plays the Hammond B3, was teaching a master class. So obviously that week of Larry Young hits me pretty hard. Of course,
Sure.
Red Young reminded everybody, go listen to Jimmy Smith. That's who he
Yeah.
talked about all week this week.
Well, and a cool story with Jimmy Smith is I'm sitting watching Star Piano being recorded in Dolby Atmos, listening to Jimmy Smith that week, thinking that, yes, this is historic because it's the Star Piano being recorded this way in the Dolby or in the Atmos recording. And I'm listening to an organ player because of the
Yep.
pipe organ as well that day. I was just overwhelmed with organ. That episode's coming up much later, but
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about that correlation too.
Yeah.
So it is important for us to talk about our week in music,
Yep.
especially just how it shapes us and our artists that we're discussing. So
Yep.
that's why we do
And,
that.
and to turn the page, literally and figuratively, the artist that we're going to be talking next week. Would you like to introduce this? Because I think Phil might have something to say about it later.
Sure. Yeah, let me do that.
I have it
So
in front of me. Oh, you got it. Cool.
Yep, I got it. You ready?
Yeah. Yeah, boy.
Okay. So the artist that we're going to be talking about next week is the Comida Quintet. The name of the album is Astigmatic. The recording label is Polski Muza Nagrania, and that was released on LP on that label. And from Power Brothers Records, it was released on CD. It was recorded December 1965, and it was released in 1966. Now, Christoph Comida, he's another piano player on our journey. So we just finished with the Herbie Hancock discussion and the pianos and the keyboards. Next week we're going to take you on a journey a little. It's going to be different. It's going to expand your mind a little bit. Take a little creativity.
I'm going to
Yeah.
pop up the album cover right now. It's got it big and bold print, Polish jazz. So we're
Now-
going across the creek a little bit for this one.
That's important to you.
Heck yeah. Yeah. We're just a couple countries away. And I love Poland. Been there a couple of times even, would go back again. So I'm interested to see what this flair will throw into there.
Yeah.
But polka, 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 You got a tuba, but yeah. So
You've done that several times.
it's
Polka, polka, polka.
hey, it goes back to Home Alone. When they're sitting with the polka band, and you got remember that scene, and
She's
they're
in the back
riding
of the
across
truck.
Wisconsin. We're going to Wisconsin. Have you ever heard of us? Remember polka, polka, polka? No, never heard of you. That's what I'm saying right now. Never heard of you. But who knows?
Oh man.
Spend some time in the back of a U-Haul with the comida.
Comida Quintet.
Who
Yep.
knows what we'll come out with?
So
You
let's
guys
let's go to Poland.
Yeah, let's go.
There
to
you
Poland.
go.
Yeah.
I'll go take some pictures at least.
Absolutely. All right.
Awesome.
Any last minute thoughts or notes or anything?
Hey, no, just thanks. That's been a fun ride. Glad you guys have invited me on. I appreciate it.
I'm
Heck
glad,
yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Knuckles
This is
to
cool.
you.
This is
Yeah.
cool. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you're
Yeah.
here. As a true unconnoisseur, who's someone who's just starting off on his journey, I think the start was a little rocky because of last week's episode. That's
A little.
hard to get your mind wrapped around. But this week, he's really starting to come into his own, even listening to artists that weren't even recommended. But
Well,
so
they-
it's good.
they
It's
were,
good to have
just-
a fresh perspective too.
Yeah, they were recommended just on an episode that he listened to of ours. So
Yeah.
Right.
Gotta keep the in connoisseur.
yeah,
I'll represent.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Great.
From the Three Rice Boys, thank y'all for joining us.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys. Have a great week.
All right.
Enjoy.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
A lot of it,